about is the initial discussion. What we're doing here is planning out how we're going to introduce the idea of coaching. How are you going to convey the meaning of coaching to an employee? Part of the reason that we spent some time in week 1 and week 2 making sure that we had a common understanding of what coaching was so that when you got to this point and an employee says, well, what do you mean by coaching? Am I in trouble? You better have a 30-second answer or less that relieves them of the anxiety that they're a low performer, especially if they know they're not. I mean, they're going to think, did I do something wrong? What do you mean coaching? Because in most organizations, coaching is something you do for low performers. And it shouldn't be that way, but a lot of lazy managers treat it that way. Don't do it. You got to have an answer. What is coaching, so that they know how to make the employee feel a little bit more relieved that what you're doing is actually a benefit to them. Okay. The other thing that we want to think about is, are you going to discuss the benefits and consequences? If it is a low performer and you offer to coach them and they say no, I hope they have a plan on how they're going to get to standard. Because you just offered them one and they turned it down. So how are you going to deal with that conversation? It's kind of an important little consideration. Me, I think I'd be looking at them and go, well, what's your plan to get to standard then? Because what I'm trying to do is help you get there. If you don't want my help, what are you going to do that's going to achieve the same outcome? And if they've got nothing, now we have a different conversation again. It's like, well, what do you think the consequences of continuing to underperform are? I mean, it's not good for you. I don't want that for you. I want to help you. I'd suggest you reconsider. If you don't have a plan on how to get to standard, you might want to work with me on this because I want you to succeed. Got to be prepared to have that conversation. Our goal in this step, the initial discussion, is to achieve agreement with the employee to pursue coaching. That's the first part. The second part is to have a common agreement on what coaching is in the first place. If they think you're going to tell them what to do, they're going to be a little bit frustrated when you come in and start asking questions. They're going to be like, why don't you just tell me what to do? And I have literally had employees look me in the eye with a look of frustration and resignation and say, Ron, just tell us what to do. And I'm like, fail. It's the only thought that went through my mind, fail. I'm inviting you into the process of building something bigger and you just want to be told what to do? You can't improve performance if you count on somebody else to give you all of your work instructions. That's just not a good recipe for career success. The initial discussion, we've got to wrap our heads around the fact that you are an internal coach, you are not an external coach, so the conversation is different. We do set context differently. We're going to introduce the topic to the employee, and keeping in mind, are they a high potential employee, or are they an average employee, or are they a low performing employee? Because the conversation varies depending on where they're at in performance. I like to introduce the topic directly and discuss their performance against goals if it's a performance-related coaching opportunity. In fact, I would bring data with me that showed where they're at against the goal. So I could say, look, man, here's where I see you at. There's the goal. That's what we're here to talk about. Now it's not about the relationship, it's about their performance. It's right there in black and white. I don't have to disrupt our relationship in order to have that conversation. Share your observations, not your judgments. You have a bad attitude. No. Share your observations. What did you see? What did you hear? They will not get as defensive if you're just sharing your observations. The minute you start judging, up goes the defensive wall, they drop into first position, they start defending themselves, and you're done. You may as well stop talking because they're not going to be listening. What are the benefits and consequences? You've got to be prepared to talk about that, possibly. And how are you going to convey what the meaning of coaching is? Some of the things that you're going to be thinking about is using appropriate questions, seeking understanding and listening to their concerns, And ultimately, we're going to direct the whole conversation toward root cause. I mean, here's the challenge or the opportunity that I see, and what we're going to do is we're going to work together to identify what we can do to help you improve in this area, to prepare you for the next role, to prepare you to hit the standard, whatever it is. I mean, it's problem-solving focused. Okay, so that was all about the initial discussion, preparation and initial discussion. Now we're going to start moving toward actual coaching, step 3. But there's some other little things that you need to know. Question design. It's really fun to watch people ask questions, because some people are just naturally gifted at keeping a conversation going or taking a conversation to places where the person being talked to might not have gone. Have you ever watched Oprah interview somebody? Or some of the most skilled interviewers, when they interview, they can take the person they're interviewing to places that that person would never have gone. You ever watch Jerry Springer? That's got nothing to do with what I'm talking about, sorry. Just want to make sure you're still awake. But Oprah and some other people like her are just incredibly gifted at making the person that they're talking to feel like there's only 2 people in the room. You know this exercise we're doing, where you've got one person speaking and one person being, listening? If you've got to a place where you are completely checked in to the conversation, you lose sight of the audience completely. Yes?
I had theater in high school. The same thing what my teacher told me. Don't be, I guess they have lights so they won't see the audience, and they'll look at you so you'll feel like there's a wall.
So look at the lights?
Yeah, because the lights are looking at, they're on you, so you won't see the audience. So
no, you won't.
Behind the light.
Yeah, so if you're anxious about the audience, look up a little bit.
So you won't see.
To be or not to be? With sunglasses on. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Question design is part of the way that we can engage people, that we can actually get them to a place where they're talking to us. The most powerful kinds of questions are inevitably going to be open-ended. Open-ended questions are questions that cannot be answered with yes or no, true or false, black or white, 0 or 1. They encourage the person being asked to reflect, to think, to search, to analyze. They're powerful questions. Did I talk to you in this class about the difference between the 2 types of thinking that we do? Did I cover that? Yes or no? It's got to be somebody else that wasn't in the last 2 classes. Have I talked about it or not? Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Because this relates to this type of question of why it works. There's an author by the name of Daniel Kahneman, I read his book late last year. It's one of the best books I read in 2016. So his name, he wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. And what's important about this book is why certain types of questions work and why others don't. What Kahneman said is that we have 2 different tracks of thinking. We have a fast system and we have a slow system. The fast system is what allows us to react quickly to stimuli. It works effectively with habit-building processes such that we don't even need to think. I want you to consider your commute over here. How much thinking did you do about the way that you drove your car? Probably not very much. And the more often you come here, the less you think about it. It's important to get part of your fast thinking process is embedding in your subconscious the ability to do repetitive tasks. You don't have to think. This allows us to react to the world around us. It's the fast or system 1. System 2 is a deliberate thinking process. And to use the commute as an example, I want you to think about this. Your commute to work. My guess is you most likely have one primary way that you go almost every day. Most of you. And then there'll be the odd person like me that likes to find new routes. But that, if you've only got a few extra minutes to get there on time, you're going to go your one trusted route. And if you're halfway through that route and you see a backup in traffic, you've got a trusty backup route that you know you can take because it's happened before. So you just zip off onto your backup route, and now you're like within 5 seconds of being on time, but at least you're still moving. But what happens to your attitude when you have to come off of your primary and onto your secondary route?
It goes negative.
You're going to get irritated. And you're irritated because you just switched from System 1 to System 2. Now you're no longer driving the car on automatic pilot, you're now driving it manually. And it requires a whole lot of inputs. And if you think about it, you're scanning the entire environment, taking in a lot more information than you're used to, and your brain has to work harder. And the point of Kahneman's book is, we don't like to think. We like to react in a pre-programmed way that allows us to avoid expending energy here. If I come back to this metaphor or analogy again, this idea of the tiger in the grass, what our brain is trying to do is, as much as possible, it's conserving resources by using this side of our brain so that when something serious happens, we have more energy when we need it. But we prefer to not think. And I'll prove it to you. For those of you who've been with me before, just play along. But if I say the sky is, fill in the blank.
Pink.
Wow, really? Peanut butter and?
Jelly. Chocolate.
Crackers and?
Cheese.
Maple?
Syrup.
How much thinking did that require? The pink required some thinking because you're trying to be smart. How much thinking was required to make those associations? So little you barely even noticed it. All right, 17 times 24.
Something really good.
See what your brain just did? It either used humor, or put a grimace on your face, or said, ain't no way. I don't do math. But any one of those, what I just did is helped you flip a switch that said, turn your System 2 on and calculate this. And many of you said, no, thank you. Don't want to turn it on right now. Not interested. System 2 is what gives us the ability to proact. Respond is somewhere in between. There's a difference between reacting and responding. Woo! Questions are triggers for either System 1 responses or System 2. If I ask you a closed-ended question, do you like hot dogs?
Yes.
System 1. Quick association. What's your favorite lunch?
So many options.
Now all of a sudden, System 2 comes on and starts scanning the memory bank for the most pleasurable meal experience at a lunch opportunity, as compared to dinner or breakfast. So now it's got to turn on. Questions change your brain, change the way your brain is functioning. Ask the right questions, get a powerful answer. Ask the wrong questions, get a superficial, crappy answer. Ask too many closed-ended questions, you'll learn nothing about the person. And ask too many closed-ended questions with an objective in mind, and the person will feel railroaded or suspicious. You've got to be careful how you ask questions. Open-ended questions are really powerful, but you know what? Imagine you walk up to somebody on the street, they're walking the other way, you've never met them before in your life. And you're going to go up to them and go, tell me about your favorite vacation. Right? They're not going to answer that question. Open-ended questions, you can't just like dive in the deep end of the pool and ask a deep open-ended question. They'll be like, well, hi, how are you? If they know you, and if they don't know you, you're creepy and weird. Why are you asking me this question? Don't you know normal people go, hi, good morning, nice to meet you? You don't start with a deep open-ended question. That's stupid. Don't do it. Open-ended questions are powerful, but they got to be well placed. Closed-ended questions get you decisive answers, simple answers. Sometimes they're useful. Is this what you want to work on? Yes. Okay, good, let's go. So they're decisive, but they don't give you much information. There are other questions that we need to think about. Comparative value questions. I used one with Anthony. Do you remember what it was?
What's more important?
Which is more important, performance or relationships? I was using one. But the key, you got to be careful with these because they limit choice. What I was demonstrating is an example of a comparative value where he set the context. These were his two choices. So I'm like, which one's more important to you? I'm not limiting anything. I'm just asking him which one he thinks is more important. They were his ideas. But if he said, I want to improve the culture and the relationships in the company, and I looked at him and said, well, what's more important, performance or that? Now I'm manipulating him, influencing his answer. Because he didn't say the first one. And if I say, or that, what you said, now I'm even downplaying its importance because I'm not even repeating it for him. I'm manipulating him. Comparative value, you got to be careful. Leading questions. Wouldn't you agree that this is a good position for you? A question like that begs for, if you hear somebody, when you ask a question like that and they go, yes? With a question mark on the end, you're manipulating them. You're leading them to an answer that you want them to give you. Don't use leading questions. And I talked about why before. Why is a relationship-based question? If you ask it outside of relationship, be careful. Because you're asking them to reveal motive, their own personal motive, something that is closely guarded, and they will not give it away unless they trust you. Why do you want to get promoted? It's a great question. But if he doesn't know me, he might not want to answer it. If I'm his manager, I might be compelled to answer it even though I don't want to. So you just got to get different questions, impact people differently. A couple of other things to think about. There are questions that are designed to get you information. There are others that are designed to demonstrate curiosity. And I can guarantee you, if you really want to connect with somebody and help them, curiosity is the standard. You'll get information anyway. Ask questions out of curiosity. One of the funny things that always comes up when I talk on curiosity is, what if I'm not curious? Well, get curious. Because if you're trying to help the person, you should be curious. In fact, you really can't coach them very well if you're not curious. If you're not curious, look in the mirror and try and figure out why not. Coach yourself. The final thing, powerful questions. Shorter is better. The shorter the question, the better. What you'll find is that some people ask long-winded questions and the question gets lost in their words, and by the end, the person that's supposed to answer is like, huh? I'm not sure what you're asking. If somebody ever says that to you, find a way to boil it down to its essence. The best question, the shortest question I ever asked wasn't even a question. Somebody was feeding me a line of crap. A client was feeding me a line of crap about, well, that's what I intuited that it was a line of crap. I thought they were just saying what they thought I wanted to hear. And when they got done, I looked at him and I just looked at him and I'm like, so? And the person looked at me like, you're right, I'm fooling myself. Here's what's actually going on. I'm like, Yes, I don't think it's possible to ask a one-letter question. I got the 2. That was awesome. Didn't even have a question mark, not even any punctuation, just so. Powerful questions, shorter is better. And what they're doing, I want you to think about a metaphor. Our brains have brain waves, right? The energy is electrical, so it's in waves. So just imagine that this is one person's brain wave, and I know it's a lot more complicated than this, but just imagine that that's the person that you're coaching, that's their brain wave. What you want to be thinking about is being so in tune with what they're saying, so carefully listening to what they're talking about, that you're literally doing this. It's not a perfect fit, but you're tracking them. You're thinking the same way. If you can get there, the next question you ask, they'll not even notice that you asked it. They'll think they asked it. Because they'll answer it because it's the next logical thing in the sequence of what they're saying. Powerful questions. When you're so in tune with the person that you're talking to that you can ask the question that they're thinking, man, now the trust, the relationship deepens, their openness blossoms, and they'll want you to help them grow. And the thing about powerful questions, this is what will actually build awareness and create breakthrough for the person that you're coaching. They'll start to own their shortcoming and look for an opportunity to improve. All right.
Quick question.
Yes.
Well, maybe not.
Oh, we'll see.
I'll ask you in a closed question.
That'll guarantee a short answer, maybe.
Yes. So is there coaching or a difference between coaching and mentoring?
Yes.
Okay. So, all right.
There you go.
So I'll ask it in an opening. What's the difference between coaching and mentoring?
Nice. You see how you just did there? And the problem with the closed-ended question, if I'm in a smart, you-know-whatted mood, you'll get the 2-letter or 3-letter answer, and that's it. There's a very fundamental difference. And one of the ways to look at it is mentoring, like coaching, is about helping somebody grow. Okay? They overlap a lot. And one of the ways that I keep them separate is to say this, that mentoring is many things and includes coaching as one of the tools to helping somebody improve. So you've got coaching and you've got mentoring. Mentoring's bigger than coaching because it's not necessarily coaching, but it could be coaching. So mentoring, to me, it's like I'm giving somebody a hand up from where they're at to move up in an organization. I'm mentoring them to improve in some way that will help them expand their career. Coaching is about helping somebody improve in a very specific area, which obviously, if I'm mentoring, I could coach them if I know how. Coaching on its own is very specific, help them improve in one area. Mentoring is help them expand their capacity and improve their career. Both of them do the same thing. One is broader than the other.
Yeah.
It's also very rare to get paid to mentor, but it's very common to get paid to coach. That's another difference. Does that help?
Yep.
Cool. This slide and the next one are 2 really important concepts I need you to wrap your head around with me. And I'm going to draw this one on the board because I really want you to get it. There is a model of learning, and I need to figure out whose model this is and make sure I give them credit for it. So Tyler, remind me to look for that. So I want you to think about another 4-square model like I did before, only this time we've got level of competence and level of consciousness. And this is not the same consciousness as Keegan's model, it's just how aware am I of something, okay? So competence increases that way, consciousness increases that way. So if you think about these 4 quadrants then, over here is unconscious incompetent. Here, we've changed the consciousness level, so this is conscious incompetence. And we come over here, now we have conscious competence. And that means the final box is unconscious competence. Everybody follow? Okay. This box, unconsciously incompetent, is the technical definition of ignorance. Another way of saying unconscious incompetence is, I don't know what I don't know. I'm not any good at a task, and I don't know that the task even exists. Unconsciously incompetent. If somebody points out to us what we don't know, we can come up to here. We become conscious of the fact that we don't know how to do something. Because now we know about it, but that doesn't mean we're any good at it because we haven't done anything to get good at it. We're just conscious of it. So from a coaching point of view, the first job of a coach is to build awareness that enables somebody to move from this place of unconscious incompetence to where they know that they're not any good at it. They're consciously incompetent. If you're coaching somebody, when they get to here, they have a choice. They're going to either choose to learn it or they're going to choose to not. If they choose not to, they just kind of sink back to about here. They know they're no good at it, but they're in denial of it, and they just ignore it. Okay? That's a really bad outcome, but that is a choice. If they choose to move over here, what it takes is practice. If you practice something enough, such that it becomes a unconscious habit, or we no longer need to think about it. Remember, unconscious, conscious to unconscious. You practice something enough, you eventually, the word here, this is when we master it, and this is still a measure of competence or consciousness, of course, but if we master something, we can become unconsciously good at it. Driving is a very good example of how we have all become relatively unconsciously competent. And the challenge is that when we get diverted off onto our secondary route, we can no longer take for granted our unconscious competence. We've got to actually move back into this quadrant and become conscious of all the things around us so that we don't crash into something, expending mental energy. The job of a coach is first to build awareness. It is then to build an action plan and to hold the person accountable in a way that they will start to grow skill and then reinforce as they master the process. And then once they get to here, there's always something to learn. You come over and you repeat the whole cycle again. That's what this model is. This is learning and coaching kind of put together. The job of a coach is to help somebody move through that cycle over and over and over as they expand their skill set. going to skip that slide. Okay. What we're going to do, no more PowerPoint. It's not, actually, you might notice, this is slide number 151 out of 164. Like 4 hours to go, and there's only like 11 slides, and one of them's like, thanks for coming out. So there's not many more PowerPoint. We're through it. What we're going to do is I want you to get back in, we'll do 4 groups this time because I think we have 10 people now, 11? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Perfect. We're going to do 4 groups. No, 6 groups since we have 12 people. Groups of 2. And what I want you to do is do a skit on how you're going to do the initial conversation with a potential coaching, like an employee that you want to coach. Okay?